All right, let's start with the peach cake, and this is an upside down peach cake. How's that sound?
That sounds
I'm sure
awesome.
you've made upside down pineapple cake, but you probably haven't done a peach cake.
No, never.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put some cookies. I've got these cookies are amaretti. I'm sure you've had them.
Yeah.
And these are little cookies. They're very hard. They're made with both sweet and bitter almonds. So let's whirl them up. We want to make them into a crust.
Okay.
So we're going to whirl them up. You need about 22 of these. And once they're kind of pulverized like that, we want to add some sugar right through the feed tube. And then some almonds. We're going to put almonds in there because this will give a really nice texture to the crust. So that'll go in. And we need 4 tablespoons of butter. Can you hand me a spatula there?
Sure.
And that goes in.
Just to bind it all together?
Bind it all together. So we'll put the top on again and let that go until we have something that looks like it's moist.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're going to put this in a 9 by 2 inch cake pan. So Rachel, you want to get out a cake pan?
Sure.
And I'm going to have you pat this into the cake pan, but first you're going to have to do something to that. You're going to have to give that a little bit of spray.
So it doesn't stick.
This is a cake that goes together very quickly. And to do the cake so it comes out, because it's pretty sticky with the peaches, we want to put some parchment paper down. So put some parchment paper down there. And why don't you give that a little bit of a spray too?
Okay. Okay.
Pat that all down just in the base of the pan. Whoop, let me get all that. I don't want to waste any of that. So you want to pat that down into the base. Okay. And while you're doing that, I'm going to work on the batter part of this. So press it in really well. And now for the batter, what we did was we saved out 8 of those cookies that we just pulverized, and we didn't put the nuts in. These are just plain now. So now we just want to make a batter. So we're going to start with eggs. So a couple eggs. This can just all go in together. This is really easy. I was mixing up 2 eggs. I've got some sugar in there, 4 tablespoons of butter. We want to get that soft. And then we're going to add some flour and some salt, some baking soda. All of this can go right into the mixer. So for this, we want to use just an unbleached all-purpose flour. Okay. So once we have that pretty much mixed up. Now, what have you learned about baking? What does baking teach you, really?
Well, baking teaches you a lot about creativity. And baking for a homeless shelter, a lot of times, you know, you got to adapt with what you have. You know, whatever is there for you to bake with, you got to learn to use that to your advantage. So it teaches you a lot about you know, making substitutions. How can I make this work with what I have right now? How can I keep the cost down? Because it's expensive to bake a lot for a lot of people. So that's a lot what I've learned.
Well, that was all very good advice. And that's true. A baker needs to know how to adjust, just like a cook needs to know how to adjust. Well, we're adjusting this recipe now because we just put in 1.5 cups of flour. I added a little pinch of salt. I've got a little cinnamon in there. I'm going to add some orange zest.
Smells good.
Yeah. And why don't you open that up for me? That's a little orange extract. If you didn't have extract, you could use, what could you use as a substitute?
You could use a little bit of juice.
Exactly. You could use orange juice. So why don't you put just a dab of that, because that's oil. So you don't need a lot of it. Okay. Now while I'm doing this, why don't you get the peaches?
All right.
So I'm going to add now a 1/2 cup of milk just to get this loose into a loose mixture. And turn up the speed a little bit. It does help if you can do this blindfolded. So, all right, there are peaches, because this cake is going to go together with white peaches. And these are white peaches, and they're in season now. I need to add my baking soda, which I forgot to add, but we can put it in now, so it's not too late. And add that. And those crumbs. Why don't you start putting the peaches in the dish? So we're adding these crumbs, those amaretti. Going to give this a little extra texture in the batter. We have all of our ingredients in now. We'll push that aside. And now you want to put the peaches around in a nice little decorative way. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be covered up with this batter. Isn't this smelling good?
It smells fantastic.
All right, so you can really smell the orange, so I'm done with that, so I can take this out now. So here's our batter. And just line that pan nicely with the peaches. And if you didn't have access to peaches, white peaches, you want to make sure that they're nice and ripe. Do you know who produces the most peaches after the United States?
I don't.
Ah, come on. Sure you do. Italia?
Italy.
Italy! Yes, indeed. Italy is the second largest producer of peaches after the United States. All right, I think you can put a few more in there.
All right.
Put a few more in. And our oven is on at 350 degrees preheated. Now, if you weren't going to use peaches with this, what would you use?
I would use maybe a nectarine or even maybe a pear.
Oh, that would be
or
good.
a soft apple.
Okay, that looks good. Now we can put this in right over this. This is a very moist cake. And now you can see why it's called a peach cake that's upside down, an upside down peach cake. Get all that batter in. I used to like to lick the bowl, but you know, raw eggs, you can't do that anymore. Okay, there. So now, let's get a little spatula here. Why don't you spread that out?
Sure.
Spread that out evenly. So a cake like this is going to serve 8 to 10 people. It's great by itself. You could have it with a little bit of ice cream. But when it comes out of the oven, we're going to put a little bit of powdered sugar with it. And maybe we have ice cream in the freezer. I'll have to check and see. So now it's ready to go. We give it a tap. And why don't you go put it in the bottom oven?
Sure.
So put it in the bottom oven, I would say 35 to 45 minutes. You're going to have to use a cake skewer. Insert it in the center. If it comes out too wet, you know you need to let that cake go for a little longer.